Okay, welcome to the very strange opening of our exhibition, Graffitied Memoryscapes, which is being held at Exportu in Rijeka and will be open until the 20th of December. And this exhibition is part of a larger project on memoryscapes as part of Rijeka 2020. And it's financed by Rijeka 2020. And I want to thank all the EPK people who have helped in the exhibition and helped organize it. And I think it's another example of the cooperation between the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences in Rijeka, the University of Rijeka, the City of Rijeka and EPK, and also Delta Lab and Renato Stankovic there that's helping and hosting us this exhibition at Exportu. And this exhibition also involves the cooperation with the Center for Advanced Studies at the University of Rijeka, and some of the other authors of the exhibit will explain some of the funding. We had some German funding partners as well, which made the exhibition possible. So a lot of the memoryscape work that I've done in the past is usually focusing on monuments, public space, architecture. But what we wanted to look at was graffiti and other interventions onto this public space, which is often very subversive, sometimes considered to be vandalism, but at other times can also be part of the dominant narrative or the official narrative. There are also murals and political slogans that take the role of graffiti, and that is what we wanted to actually analyze, more of the political use of graffiti in its many forms. So even though my interest has been following monuments and memorial spaces, through the last 10 years as I've been traveling to the former Yugoslavia and other parts of Southeast Europe, I've noticed that in many cases the monuments, especially those from the socialist period, were destroyed, damaged, removed, modified, transformed, vandalized, and sometimes the graffiti that appears on these is just from neglect. But other times, this graffiti and interventions are specific symbolic interventions to challenge the symbols, the texts, the meanings that are located on these memorials. And so in the course of these 10 years, I've collected a large number of these monuments, some that are in perfect shape but have small interventions, or other monuments that are completely destroyed and completely covered in graffiti. And other times I even noticed that graffiti itself in the form of a mural or even a simple bottom-up graffiti can also function as a memorial space or as a monument itself, or in those rare cases when a monument is part of a graffiti or a mural. So there's many intersections between memory, graffiti, and public space, as well as street art, murals, and so on. And because of my interest in this monument space and this graffiti as memoryscape, I had the chance to meet the key collaborator on this project, Roswitha Kersten-Pejanić, and she is a postdoc at the Center for Advanced Studies at the University of Rijeka, and she is working on linguistic landscapes in Croatia. And it was our initial discussions about her work and my work that we decided to put together an exhibition with our vast archive of images, and she was able to get funding from some German foundations that made this possible. So it was through this collaboration and discussion that this exhibition was made possible. I will also like to introduce the other two authors on the exhibition before handing them over to them. Our other collaborator is Eric Ušić, who is a PhD student at the University of Ljubljana, and he is looking at political slogans in Istria after the Second World War. In fact, we've done a lot of field work together throughout Istria, and behind me there's even an example of the kind of work that he's been doing. And his slogans and these graffiti are those that have lasted and endured over 50 years, over 70 years, that are still on the walls throughout Istria. So he will be reporting to us from the field of Vodnjan, where there are many, many of these graffitis, and that's his home base. And our final collaborator and author of the exhibition is Kevin Kenjar, and he is also a postdoc at the Center for Advanced Studies at the University of Rijeka. He's a linguistic anthropologist, received his PhD from UC Berkeley, and he has also spent many, many years throughout the former Yugoslavia recording graffiti. And I believe what he is mostly focused on is this idea of changing how the art of intervention, how graffiti is modified, changed, sometimes from hate speech into a message of love, and has followed the lifespan of some graffiti on various walls. And it was, I don't think this exhibition could have been even possible without him, because of these strange COVID times and the difficulty in traveling back and forth. I really want to give a big thanks to Kevin for stepping up and helping make it happen. Of course, working with Roswitha and Renato there in Exportu. So that's my introduction. I'd like to hand it over to Roswitha, because really this was also her initiative, and she was able to get the funding. So Roswitha, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Vjeran, and welcome here from Exportu in Rijeka. I hope you can hear me in spite of the mask. We're very happy to be here today and open this nice exhibition, which you will see in a minute. And thanks for Vjeran for all the introductory words and all the background information already. I'm just trying to give you a little bit more of a picture when it comes to the other collaboration partners. So Vjeran said very rightly that we are here actually based on our home institutions, which is the University of Rijeka. For me, already 2 years and another year on my postdoc fellowship. And we are very, very thankful for the funding we got from the European Cultural Capital. And the Schubeck Fonds, which is Europa in Munich, and another organization from Munich, the Südosteuropa Gesellschaft, just hopped in very recently, and we are very, very thankful for this collaboration too. And let me just think, of course, we're also, when it comes to the material we're going to show you in a minute, we're very happy that Anna Kunay did the design from Kuna Zlatica in Zagreb, and Robert Rukavina, who is here with us today, did the printing and the final work on the posters, which you will see here in a minute. I think I did not forget anyone. There is the German Research Foundation also on the posters, which is my funding organization. So I'm actually able to be here in Rijeka because of a project for which I get money from the German Research Foundation, the Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft. This is why the shortening is DFG. Yeah, and the Center for Advanced Studies and the Department of Cultural Studies are like, because of us coming from there and because of all the help we get there, are of course a very important to name. But also I would, again, as Vjeran said, to take the opportunity to really thank Eric and Kevin, who, although they jumped in kind of later, they really made a big effort here and helped to finalize and actually, yeah, to get the whole project going. Also in the last minute by translating our text, by proofreading a lot. So really, they were like always there when we needed them, which is just great. We might actually start with like a quick round. Should we do that together? Would you like to hop in here, Kevin, or should I just give you a very broad overview of the idea here? So
Well, I think maybe we should have Eric go before the tour, just because he's freezing outside.
Oh, yeah,
in
then he
Bodjan.
should definitely. Good. Then I would say I'll hand over to Eric, and later on we will show you the place, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, hi, I hope you hear me well. I'm outside, as Vjeran said, so I'm a little bit freezing because it's cold here and windy. I wanted to be outside today, of course, because I'm not there with you, so I can add another layer on this exhibition. Since we have the visual part, I will like to add the fieldwork part, since fieldwork is the basis of our not only exhibition, but our research, and to show you this beautiful piece of a long-lived Stalin here in Bodjan. So I suppose it was written before 1948. I don't think that it was written after. As you can see, he is actually here in the middle of the street where people live and pass nearby this graffiti every day. And I would like, of course, thanks Vjeran and Roswitha for inviting me to participate in this exhibition, so I can present my work and my photos taken on fieldwork. As Vjeran said, I live in a town near Pula, Bodjan, that has more than 50 graffiti written in the World War II and post-war period. So if someone is wondering why I'm doing this research, it has a strong autobiographical note, because I asked myself what these writings are. I live nearby this one, so I try to figure out what are their historical meanings and what were their functions, who were their authors, and then I start to dig a little deep. I think these graffiti fit well with the other parts of the exhibition, and I think that some of the examples from the historical period I tried to cover are compatible with, for example, Roswitha's part, because you will see very similar slogans. For example, this village is Croatian, or this house is Croatian, that were almost written in the same way in 1946, as well as in the 90s in Croatia. But graffiti are highly contextual practices, so the context define their meaning and function. So I hope that you will enjoy this exhibition. I don't know how many of you are there, and thanks to Renato as well for helping us, and big thanks to Luka Malvić, who is providing us technical support on Zoom.
Thank you, Eric. I should also say that our initial idea for this opening was to be a lot more bombastic, with students and a little bit of a party in Exportu. Obviously, because of the COVID-19 situation, we had to move online, but our ambition is, and our goal and plan is to have a second opening in the spring. This exhibition will be outdoors at that point, and then we will probably organize a roundtable and have some more academic discussion, because of course, our exhibition has a lot of visual components to it, and it stands on its own. But I think to really understand a lot of the work behind it, and many of these semiotics and linguistic landscape that Roswitha works on, it calls for a greater discussion and debate. And I think we'll be able to pull that off in the spring. So there'll be more opportunity to discuss this. But now I'd like to hand it over to Roswitha and Kevin in Exportu.
So, my name is Kevin Kenjar, and I'd like to introduce you to our exhibition. And I'll start with a short walk around. Here we have the opening panels, and it begins with some pictures that we have, a collage of various graffiti, together with the nice graphic design of Anna Kunek. And from there, we began with a very brief overview and an introduction to the authors who have been involved in the production of this exhibition. From there, we actually move on to a theoretical introduction to the field of graphscapes, political landscapes, graffiti, and memory, in order to provide a kind of theoretical basis through which to understand the rest of the work. After this theoretical overview, we move on to our individual projects, where each of the four of us have put together a collection of posters that allow us to present our research in a public manner. So we can begin with Eric Ušić, who we just heard from in Vodnjan. And Eric has worked on political graffiti in Istria, specifically from the time after the Second World War, in the immediate aftermath, when the fate of Istria was quite unclear as to whether it would become part of Italy or part of Yugoslavia. So here in Eric's work, we see a lot of graffiti from this period in both Croatian, but also largely in Italian. And we can see here that you find it all over the Istrian Peninsula, as well as some of the neighboring islands, because of the reasons that we just discussed. And it was quite clear from the context that this had to do not only with liberation, but also with making a claim over the territory. So there was an official campaign of state propaganda to put up this graffiti, which remarkably has remained in place for 7 decades at this point. So from here, we can move on and we can see the disappearing political graffiti in this time as it does fade. At this point, we can move on to the work of my colleague Roswitha Kersten-Pejanić, who has dealt with graffiti in conflict and particularly post-conflict zones, namely those around the former Republika Srpska Krajina, where the contested territory was heavily marked by graffiti, both during the period of the Republika Srpska Krajina and in the immediate aftermath with Oluja. And we can see how graffiti has played a key role in marking territory and is used in various ways, not only to mark territory in the broad sense, but even individual homes. Moving on, again with Roswitha's work, we can see some examples of the politics of language and script, namely dealing with Cyrillic. Here we have, for example, Vukovar, Nikad Vukovar, which when you read it doesn't quite make sense, but when you see that the second Vukovar is written in Cyrillic, the meaning of it becomes clear, that it's making a claim on the city, and particularly dealing with the use of Cyrillic as to making a claim as to whom the city belongs to. Furthermore, here we have some more landscapes of belonging and national identity, and again, dealing heavily with the use of Cyrillic and the use of language to mark territory. Again, we see some examples here of individual homes that have been marked saying, this is Croatia or Croatian house, which of course was very important in the period of Oluja, where people would mark their homes in order to hope to avoid having their homes destroyed. And finally, we get to the acts of linguistic violence. And here we have some examples of Ustaše graffiti, including the imagery of the winged U with a cross, examples of Za dom spremni written in public places, this being the old fascist salute from the independent state of Croatia, and people calling for the death of Serbs. From here, we can leave Roswitha's work and move on to the work of our colleague Vjeran Pavlaković, who has worked on memorials primarily and the use of graffiti on memorials. So here we see some examples of various memorials, primarily from the Yugoslav period, that have been, I won't say attacked, but at least marked with graffiti. Whether or not it's considered an attack is up to you. And here's some wonderful examples of this. particularly, we see again and again the use of fascist and NDH imagery to mark memorials to the partisans that were put up during Yugoslavia. So in these cases, it's quite clear that we have a political change where the official narrative has been challenged in the aftermath of the collapse of Yugoslavia. In this one, we have a series of small interventions that have been made, whether it's a minor correction, such as including the term genocide in Visegrad, or the addition of small swastikas and, in this case, even some cosmetics onto statues. And then finally, we have the idea that graffiti itself can stand on a monument, that it doesn't need to be placed onto a monument strictly, but rather the graffiti itself can function as a monument. And here are some prime examples of this, notably the massive mural in Vukovar of the Mourning Mother. And here's some heroes from Mostar who have been otherwise forgotten as anti-fascist fighters, who are now being honored in murals. So at this point, I get to introduce my own work. Here I've assembled a poster dealing with the art of intervention. And as we saw with Eric's work, at times graffiti can last for decades. In the case of Pompeii, it's lasted for millennia. More often than not, it lasts for a very short period of time, whether a few weeks or months, before something comes along, some force that ends the life of the graffiti as it stood. So in this part of the exhibition, I deal with various ways that graffiti comes to an end, beginning with the act of effacement, in which a graffiti is erased or simply painted over and ceases to exist at that point. So now I'll take you across the way here. In this poster, we introduced the concept of defacement, where the graffiti that had stood in place has now been marked upon to cross it out or to black it over. And as we see, there's a few different ways that this is done. Sometimes it's marked by those who have done the work in terms of autographing it. Here we see an example of the leftist group Crvena Akcija calling for free healthcare on a pharmacy in Novi Zagreb. That's been crossed out and defaced by the Bad Blue Boys, who have marked it with their Dynamo symbol and the Celtic cross. Next, we have engagement. And in this variety, the original graffiti still stands in place most of the time. However, someone has come in and added something next to it, usually as some kind of response. So here we have, for example, graffiti from Zadar of Porto Maltese, pondering what is wrong with this city, and someone has written next to it, Padese. Here we have a conversation between two leftists, where one makes the classic call, factories to the workers, fornite lanissima, and a response comes, koi fornite, which factories? And here we have the concept of détournement, which is basically an act of making small changes in order to hijack the graffiti. Here's a simple example of pro-fascist graffiti, fascism živi, with the Ustasha symbol and a swastika that's now been converted into feminism živi, feminism live, where the Ustasha symbol has turned into a flower pot and the swastika has been turned into a flower. An example here from Belgrade, we have Pedernece Šetati, the faggot will not walk, referring to the Pride Parade. And someone has come in and changed it to smetati, meaning to bother. So you won't be bothering anybody. At this point, we can turn to the last part of the exhibit, where up here we have a projection of graffiti that I've collected across Croatia. And these are all real examples that I've altered to put into a single projection. Each of these examples is indicative of one of the ways of engaging with graffiti that I've laid out in the past few posters. And it's projected onto this wall in order to stimulate the effect of seeing it in person on a wall, but with the benefit of not having to wait months or years in order to see it be altered. So here's an example from Novi Zagreb, in which an Ustaša symbol has been converted into a penis with Kaya Popsi coming up at the end there. So I'll turn it over at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. That was a great virtual tour. I'm sorry I'm not able to be in Rijeka right now with the rest of the graffiti crew. And I'm sure Eric is also wishing he could be there instead of freezing out there on the streets of Vodnjan. But I'm definitely inviting everybody who is in Rijeka or passing through Rijeka. I know these are some strange times, but as you can see, Exportu has a lot of space inside, so you can follow all the recommendations and be safe and still see our exhibition there. I also want to again emphasize that it was just wonderful listening to Kevin, and it really shows how interdisciplinary this team we put together really is, and we all approach the graffiti from many different sides and interpretations. And also, hopefully this exhibition is not just about the photos that we've taken, but inspiring people as they walk around to really read the walls and see how they change. And sometimes these graffiti can be fresh from the night before, or as in Eric's situation, this graffiti pops up that's over 70 years old. We can still see it on the walls, or maybe even older. I don't know if Roswitha, Eric, if you wanted to have any final comments, or maybe Renato wanted to jump in, or should we start wrapping it up? Eric?
I went for a walk to get warm, and I encountered another graffiti, another Stalin here, just to show it to you.
Right.
I'm surrounded by them here in my hometown, so yeah, that's the final word from me. Thank you again.
Yeah, then I would just say very quickly, can you hear me from my phone? Yeah. That I'm very, very thankful, and I'm actually pretty happy that there are lots of people here, despite, I mean, we do have like the measures, and of course they're not allowed to be more than 15 people in here, but we're almost come to that number, which is great. And I wish you would have been here, Eric and Vjeran, and of course everyone else who would have liked to come and see the exhibition now. But it's going to be on here for another 2 weeks and a bit, and whenever you find the time, just come over and see it, and you will see some of it online. And thanks, Kevin, for the great tour. I think it's really been very, very good to, see every picture and every panel and have a good first overview of what we're actually trying to show here. That would be it from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Again, as I said, hopefully this exhibit will be repeated in the spring, and we will try to have a round table organized around it, because I think there's so much more to discuss. Again, listening to Kevin going through the panels that we put together already made me think of a number of debates, discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to bring in some students as well into into the debate and some other experts in the region. So I'll again invite everybody to visit the exhibition until the 20th of December. We will certainly have some online elements of it as well. We'll be discussing how that will look like. And thank you again.
Bye.
That's
Okay.
it.
That's,
Okay, then thank you. See you hopefully soon and again in Rijeka or somewhere else.
yes, I will let you
Enjoy.
know when I'm coming through Rijeka.
Yes, please. Okay, bye guys.
Bye-bye.
We're just going to enjoy the posters now
Okay.
without the mobile phones in front of us.
Okay. Bye.